Hi folks, Cosmo Fox Off-Road. So I want to do something a little different. Over the years my friends and I have done a lot of crazy stuff, and unfortunately there's not necessarily video or pictures to go along with it. There's very limited content in that regard, but the stories I think are actually a lot of fun, and I think you guys might enjoy them. So I'd like to go on with a little bit of a video about my early days in engine building, starting with Briggs & Stratton engines and mini bikes and such. It all started when my sister gave me a lawnmower as she was moving away, and she said, if you can fix it, you can have it. And I spent some time learning how to fix it and got pretty familiar with Briggs & Stratton engines and how they worked, and got a good understanding of them. And then down the road, when I got a mini bike, I had worked on it a little bit. I got it tuned up, and it was running pretty good. Working with a friend of mine, learned a little bit about how engines work, and decided to try and make a hot rod Briggs & Stratton engine. And so I started with just filling in part of the head with epoxy, and you wouldn't think that would work. You'd think it just burned away, but actually the epoxy held. And I made a head gasket out of an old model box top to get a thinner head gasket and up the compression a little bit more. After doing the head, what I wound up doing was actually grinding the cam. A friend of mine told me that they used to regrind cams back in the day by grinding off the back side, not on the lobe, but actually on the base circle to get more lift. And then flattening out the top, you can get a little more duration. And so I actually ground this cam and then welded on to the end of the lifters to make up for the difference, and actually made a high lift, higher duration cam. And that led us to the higher speeds that we were able to get. And ultimately put 3.5 horsepower Briggs & Stratton on a mini bike, and we had taken the governor off and made it to where it was pretty darn fast. A friend of mine's sister clocked us at 45, or clocked me at 45 miles an hour by myself, and actually the Denver police clocked me and my buddy Weasel paired up on the bike at 30 in a shopping center in the Denver area. So we didn't even know it would go that fast with two of us on it. So it was pretty healthy. So the next progression, I had a little bit of fuel left over from one of the old Cox engines. I had a Flying Saucer that used a Cox engine. And that fuel was actually nitromethane and methanol with some castor oil mixed in, and we had just a few ounces of that. And I ran that. It ran okay, but didn't have a whole lot of it. And my buddy Weasel said, that the hobby store carries nitromethane for people who want to mix their own fuel for RC cars and such. And so we figured out that we could go down there and we could buy a quart of nitromethane and a gallon of methanol and make 25% nitro alcohol mix. And then I had to. It takes a lot more nitro alcohol to get it to combust properly, to get the mixture correct. So I wound up drilling out the jets and getting that fairly dialed. I'm fortunate that I didn't get it right. It was still too lean. I think if we'd ever got it right, we would have had some catastrophic failures and possibly even fires. But as it was, living in Denver at 5,800 feet, the nitromethane adding oxygen to the burn really gave it a good kick. And this mini bike was really strong at that point. And of course, if a little is good, a lot has to be better, right? So our next thought was, let's see what it does on 100% nitro. And nitro was expensive, so we weren't going to do a whole lot of it, but we ran it out of gas and put 100% nitro in, and the mixture obviously wasn't right for that either. At this point, we had gotten rid of the clutch because the clutch was slipping so bad. We had a centrifugal clutch on there, and it just wouldn't get going. So we had taken a lower pulley off a small block Chevy and bought a pulley at the hardware store and made it a belt drive that was just direct drive. Basically, you just pushed it to get it going, flipped the ignition switch off, and away you went, or on, and away you went. So there was no clutch at all. It just went. And so we put it on 100% nitromethane, and we hit the throttle, and it just wouldn't go. And it was kind of disappointing. Then we knew that it needed a richer mixture, and we didn't want to change it. So I'm like, well, if we use the choke, that would get it to accelerate. And so if we pulled the choke, it would take the throttle. And then the trick was to pull the choke, grab the throttle, shove the choke in, and reach for the handlebars because the thing was going to take off. And when it did, it was smoke rolling off of the front pulley on the belt and smoke rolling off the back tire. You better be up over the bars, or the thing was just going to loop out on you. It was so much fun. We had a lot of fun with that thing. And then going forward, we did wind up getting a Go Kart. It had a 4-horse Briggs & Stratton engine on it that I didn't do the head and cam thing on. I left that stock, but we did run it on the 25% nitro alcohol mix. Weasel and I started oval racing it in a parking lot and racing for times, and we were sliding around and decided that we needed to put a seatbelt in it, and our times got better. And then we decided, well, if we're strapped to this thing, we should probably have a cage. So we took some time and actually cut the thing apart and lengthened it to make it a little more comfortable to sit in, built a full cage for it, bolsters for the seats, and our time got better yet. And so again, not a lot of pictures. I'll put a picture up in this video of what the Go Kart looked like. It was pretty cool for the time. And then, all of the stuff that we did, we did all this stuff with nitromethane and ungoverned engines that ran probably 6,000-7,000 RPM, just an educated guess, and never had a failure. The only thing we ever did to them was replace rings. We didn't use the castor oil that the Cox fuel had. We just ran straight nitro alcohol, and so being kind of dry in the upper cylinder, it did wear out rings, but never actually blew one up. Pretty cool deal. And fast forward many years later, I had a lawn tractor. It was an old lawn tractor that I got with my first house that had a Tecumseh engine. I've never been a big fan of Tecumseh. And I was idling out to go mow the front yard, and it went clang and oil ran out on the deck, and I had actually thrown a rod on my lawnmower at idle after years of zinging these Briggs & Stratton engines with nitromethane in them. So kind of a testament to how well Briggs & Stratton builds their engines. Anyway, this has been kind of a different video. Let me know in the comments what you think, if you enjoy the story, even without some of the video and so forth to go with it. As always, if you like my stuff, please like and subscribe. And that's going to do it for this time. So for now, happy trails.